He sat on a filthy sidewalk, ignored by hundreds. People stepped over him like trash, some even spat in his direction. A mother yanked her child away, whispering, "Don't look at him." But what if she knew, the man she just cursed was worth $380 million and had starred in her favorite movie? This isn't a prank. This isn't fiction. That broken man they all avoided was Keanu Reeves. Where are you watching from? Let us know in the comments below. Welcome to Motivation for Success, where authentic stories fuel meaningful transformation. Today's narrative will linger in your consciousness long after you finish reading. It's a testament to humility, compassion, and the bravery required to experience life from its most vulnerable perspective. On a bitter winter afternoon in the heart of downtown Los Angeles, pedestrians briskly passed a solitary figure seated on the cold concrete. His appearance told the story most didn't want to read: exhausted eyes, dirt-streaked clothes, shoulders heavy with invisible weight. The majority pretended not to see him. Some deliberately averted their gaze. A few cast judgmental glances his way. His handwritten sign read simply, "Hungry and alone. Anything helps. Blessings to you." He received the treatment countless invisible Americans experience daily. A mother tightened her grip on her daughter's hand, whispering, "Don't stare, honey. Keep moving." The manager of an upscale coffee house emerged from his establishment, informing the man that his presence was disturbing the clientele, and he needed to relocate immediately. Without protest, the man gathered his meager belongings, offered a resigned nod, and disappeared around the corner. Then something extraordinary happened. A weathered veteran in a tattered military jacket approached, himself clearly homeless. He stopped, looked Keanu in the eyes not knowing who was really behind them, and broke his sandwich in half. "Here," the veteran said, extending his calloused hand. "You need this more than I do, brother." The kindness from someone who had nothing to give stopped Keanu cold. Later he would say it was this moment that broke him completely. What those passers-by failed to recognize was that this wasn't some anonymous soul fallen through society's cracks. And when the secret footage was finally shown to a close friend, they stared at the screen and whispered in disbelief, "Wait, that's Keanu Reeves." Yes. Keanu Reeves, thoroughly disguised, completely alone, silently observing humanity's response to those deemed worthless in our achievement-obsessed culture. This wasn't orchestrated for viral attention. No publicists coordinated this moment. No cameras openly documented his experience. No interviews were scheduled afterward. This was a deeply personal social experiment conceived and executed by Keanu himself. He sought to truly understand, beyond intellectual comprehension, what it feels like to become invisible, to be dismissed without consideration, to be stripped of human dignity based solely on appearance. What the carefully hidden cameras didn't capture, what Keanu himself wouldn't reveal until months later, was the moment that transformed this quiet social experiment into something far more harrowing. As dusk settled over the city and the streets grew emptier, three young men approached. Their intentions were immediately clear from their aggressive posture and focused attention. One carried a half-empty bottle of liquor, another kept his hand suspiciously tucked inside his jacket. "Hey, homeless Jesus," the tallest one sneered. "What you got for us today?" Keanu, deep in character, hunched further into himself. "Nothing, man. Just trying to get through the night." The leader's face hardened. "Nobody sits on our block without paying rent." He lunged forward suddenly, grabbing Keanu's collar and slamming him against the wall. The disguise nearly came loose, a familiar scar from countless action films briefly visible, but in the dim light, they didn't notice. The other two moved in, blocking the scene from the few remaining pedestrians who hurried past, deliberately unseeing. A young woman across the street witnessed the confrontation. For a brief moment, she paused, phone half raised as if to call for help. Then, with a barely perceptible shake of her head, she continued walking, quickening her pace, choosing safety over intervention. Keanu managed to break free, stumbling as he escaped down an alley. He dropped a small prop knife from John Wick he'd kept as a private joke. It clattered into the gutter, unseen by his attackers as he fled. The men didn't pursue him. The meager belongings of a homeless man weren't worth the effort. But the lesson was seared into his consciousness: when you're invisible, your suffering becomes invisible too. That moment changed everything for me, Keanu later confided to one of the documentary's producers. I wasn't just experiencing discomfort or social rejection, I was genuinely afraid for my life, and nobody cared. Not one person stopped or called for help. That's when I truly understood what it means to be erased from society's conscience. Several days later, talk show host Michael Shepard was privately shown footage captured by a single hidden camera. The veteran interviewer watched in stunned silence. Then, visibly moved, he struggled to maintain his composure. With moisture gathering in his eyes, he remarked, "This man commands $20 million per film, yet willingly subjected himself to the brutal reality of street life just to embody the suffering of those we routinely ignore." That level of empathy, that depth of character, that's virtually extinct in today's entertainment industry. The observation rings profoundly true. Throughout his career, Keanu Reeves has consistently demonstrated exceptional character not merely as a performer, but as a human being. He's silently redirected substantial portions of his earnings to set workers and cancer research foundations. During one film shoot, he relinquished his private accommodations so crew members could have proper lodging while he slept in the building's common area. He doesn't pursue recognition for these acts. He performs them because they align with his moral compass. Keanu exemplifies that authentic influence requires no spotlight. That genuine compassion needn't announce itself. That often, the most profoundly impactful individuals are those who elevate others without seeking acknowledgement. Of all the encounters Keanu experienced during his time on the streets, none affected him more deeply than his interaction with the homeless veteran who shared his sandwich, a man he would come to know as James. James Doherty had served 3 tours in Afghanistan before post-traumatic stress disorder and a lack of support systems left him homeless. The sandwich he shared with Keanu that day was his only meal. Yet without hesitation, he divided it in half for a stranger he perceived to be in greater need. "I couldn't stop thinking about him," Keanu later revealed. Here was a man our country had essentially discarded after he'd given everything for it, and yet he still had more humanity, more generosity than the hundreds of more fortunate people who passed by. 2 weeks after completing his experiment, Keanu returned to the area, no longer in disguise, searching for James. It took 3 days before he found him, huddled in the same doorway where they'd first met. Their reunion wasn't what anyone might expect. There was no grand gesture, no oversized check presented for cameras. Instead, Keanu simply sat down beside the veteran and said, "You shared your sandwich with me a couple weeks ago. I'd like to return the favor." James didn't recognize him at first. The transformation from disheveled homeless man to Hollywood star was too complete. But as understanding dawned, his reaction wasn't excitement or surprise. It was quiet dignity. "You didn't need to come back," James said simply. "Yes," Keanu replied. "I did." What followed wasn't a one-time act of charity, but the beginning of a genuine friendship that both men have kept intensely private. With Keanu's help, James entered a specialized program for veterans with PTSD. He received medical treatment, housing assistance, and vocational training. Today, he works as a counselor for other veterans transitioning to civilian life. But what James gave Keanu proved equally valuable perspective that no acting role could ever provide. "I was invisible for a few days," Keanu explained in a rare interview about the experience. James was invisible for 7 years. The difference between our experiences is immeasurable. Their friendship continues to this day, though both men fiercely guard its privacy. James has declined all interview requests, stating only, "What happens between friends should stay between friends." 6 months after his experiment, Keanu's path crossed unexpectedly with someone who had featured prominently in the hidden camera footage, the coffee shop manager who had demanded he leave the premises. Keanu was at a film industry event when he overheard a familiar voice. Turning, he immediately recognized the man now dressed in an expensive suit, networking enthusiastically with producers. The man was introducing himself as an aspiring filmmaker looking for his big break. What happened next has become the stuff of Hollywood legend, though Keanu himself has never confirmed the exact details. According to witnesses, Keanu approached the man with quiet determination. "Excuse me," he said, extending his hand. "I believe we've met before." The man, not recognizing Keanu from their previous encounter, eagerly shook his hand. "I don't think so. I definitely remember meeting Keanu Reeves," he laughed. "You're right," Keanu reportedly replied, his voice low enough that only those nearby could hear. "You wouldn't remember me. I was the homeless man you called disturbing to your clientele and forced to leave during the coldest day of January." The color drained from the man's face. Those close enough to witness the exchange described the moment as watching someone's entire worldview collapse in real time. Instead of public humiliation, however, what Keanu offered next stunned everyone present. He reached into his pocket and handed the man a ticket to the premiere of John Wick 4. "Next time, look closer," he said simply, walking away leaving the man speechless. The story leaked within hours, spreading across social media platforms with lightning speed. #LookCloser became a trending hashtag, with thousands sharing their own experiences of being overlooked or invisible. "He didn't shame me, though he had every right to," Winters revealed in a TEDx talk that subsequently went viral. "Instead, he asked me questions about why I'd acted as I did, what I assumed about him when he was disguised, and whether I'd ever truly seen the homeless people in my neighborhood. It wasn't an accusation, it was an invitation to examine my own humanity." The most powerful moment, according to Winters, came when Keanu asked him a simple question: "If you had recognized me under the dirt and disguise, would you have treated me differently?" "Of course I would have," Winters admitted instantly. "That's exactly the problem," Keanu replied quietly. "I wasn't invisible," Keanu reportedly confessed to a close friend afterward, his voice breaking. "I was erased. People literally stepped over me, not around me, over me. As if I were an object, not a person. I've played characters who died on screen dozens of times, but this was the first time I experienced what it feels like to be truly dead in someone's eyes." This realization led to another dimension of his quiet activism. Beyond financial support, Keanu began regularly volunteering at Los Angeles area shelters, sitting with residents and listening to their stories without cameras or publicity. He established connections with several transition programs that help move people from homelessness to stable housing, offering not just funding but personal mentorship. #The return visit that no one expected. What few people know is that Keanu's experiment didn't end with that initial experience. 6 months later, he returned to the same neighborhood, this time as himself, dressed in his normal attire, clearly recognizable as the star of The Matrix and John Wick. The contrast in treatment was both predictable and devastating. The same coffee shop that had ejected him months earlier now eagerly offered him free beverages. Pedestrians who had previously stepped over his body now stopped for autographs and selfies. A police officer who had earlier told him to move along now approached to shake his hand and tell him what a big fan he was. Most revealing was his encounter with a young woman who had walked past him dozens of times during his disguised days without acknowledgement. Now she approached excitedly, explaining that she passed this corner every day on her way to work and couldn't believe her luck at finally meeting him. "I've never seen you here before," Keanu said gently. "Oh, I'm here every single day, same time," she insisted. "I would have definitely noticed you." The irony wasn't lost on anyone who later viewed the side-by-side footage, which showed the same woman walking directly past disguised Keanu day after day, her gaze deliberately shifting away from the homeless figure on the sidewalk. When a documentary filmmaker later showed her the comparative footage, her reaction spoke volumes. She didn't become defensive or make excuses. Instead, she began to cry. "I didn't see him," she whispered. "How could I not have seen him?" This moment, a genuine recognition of our collective blindness, became the emotional centerpiece of a private documentary that Keanu has shown only at homeless advocacy events, never for public consumption or personal promotion. What compels a man who could be anywhere in the world, enjoying luxuries most only dream about, to voluntarily experience rejection and invisibility? For Keanu Reeves, this experiment wasn't born from idle curiosity but from a lifetime shaped by profound loss and perspective. Many don't realize that beneath Keanu's calm exterior lies a history marked by tragedy. His father abandoned the family when he was just 3 years old. His closest friend, River Phoenix, died outside the Viper Room in 1993. His daughter with girlfriend Jennifer Syme was stillborn in 1999, putting tremendous strain on their relationship. Months later, Syme herself died in a car accident. His sister Kim battled leukemia for years. "Pain changes you," Keanu once reflected during a rare personal interview. But that doesn't mean the change must be negative. Sometimes suffering expands your capacity to recognize suffering in others. This perspective illuminates why someone of his stature would choose discomfort over privilege, even temporarily. It wasn't performative empathy, it was a genuine attempt to bridge understanding. During his hours on that street corner, Keanu experienced hundreds of human interactions. According to one of the few confidants aware of his experiment, only 3 people stopped to offer genuine assistance. One homeless veteran shared half his sandwich. An elderly immigrant woman pressed $2 into his palm with a gentle squeeze. A young waitress bringing him coffee whispered, "My dad was on these streets for 2 years. Whatever brought you here, don't give up." These moments of connection amid overwhelming indifference affected Keanu profoundly. The following week, he anonymously funded 3 local shelters' operations for 6 months and established a scholarship program for homeless youth pursuing education. What remained undisclosed until recently was that Los Angeles wasn't the only city where Keanu conducted his experiment. Over the course of 18 months, he repeated similar immersions in 5 other major American cities: New York, Chicago, Atlanta, Seattle, and Detroit. Each location revealed its own troubling patterns about how we treat our most vulnerable citizens, with results growing progressively more concerning from city to city. The consistency was actually the most disturbing element, said Dr. Eleanor Chambers, a sociologist who helped design the expanded study. Whether in liberal Seattle or conservative Atlanta, the fundamental dehumanization remained remarkably similar. Geographical location and political affiliation made almost no difference in how homeless individuals were treated. The most alarming findings came from the experiment's extension into different demographic presentations. In addition to appearing as a middle-aged homeless man, Keanu's disguises included a homeless elderly woman with extensive prosthetic makeup, a young homeless veteran with visible disabilities, a homeless teenager. The treatment of the elderly woman character proved particularly disturbing. While the male presentations occasionally received hostile interactions, the elderly female character was predominantly treated with complete invisibility, not even warranting negative attention. Women make up the fastest growing demographic among the homeless population, Dr. Chambers explained. Yet they're simultaneously the most invisible. Society seems to have no conceptual category for female homelessness, so these women are cognitively erased even more completely than their male counterparts. These expanded experiments have informed Keanu's philanthropy in crucial ways, directing his resources toward particularly vulnerable and overlooked subgroups within the homeless population. Celebrity philanthropy often arrives with press releases and gala appearances. Keanu's approach couldn't be more different. For over 15 years, he has operated a private foundation that supports children's hospitals and cancer research, inspired by his sister's battle with leukemia. He's never attached his name to it. "I have a private foundation that's been running for 5 or 6 years, and it helps aid children's hospitals and cancer research," he once acknowledged when directly questioned. "I don't like to attach my name to it, I just let the foundation do what it does." This philosophy extends to his everyday interactions. Crew members from his films consistently share stories of his extraordinary consideration. During the filming of The Matrix series, Keanu gifted each of the 12 stuntmen with custom Harley-Davidson motorcycles. While shooting John Wick, he surrendered a significant portion of his salary to ensure the special effects team received proper compensation. Sandra Bullock, his co-star in Speed, once revealed, "Keanu's the type of guy who hears that you've never had champagne before, so the next day at work, there's a bottle of Cristal on your doorstep. He's generous, but genuinely embarrassed if you bring it up." These aren't calculated moves for public approval. They reflect something increasingly rare in our spotlight-seeking culture: character expressed through private action rather than public declaration. Perhaps what makes Keanu's social experiment so uncomfortable is that it forces us to confront our own behavior. We pride ourselves on compassion in theory while practicing selective humanity in reality. Studies consistently show that we process homeless individuals differently in our brains than we do other people. Neuroimaging research reveals that the medial prefrontal cortex, the region associated with social cognition, often shows reduced activity when subjects view images of homeless individuals compared to images of other people. In essence, we sometimes literally fail to see their humanity. Keanu's experiment challenges this neurological shortcut. By placing someone society values highly in the position of someone society often ignores, he created a powerful thought experiment. If we can't recognize basic humanity in someone we would otherwise admire, what does that reveal about our perception? This realization has inspired similar experiments by other public figures, though few have committed to the experience with Keanu's level of immersion. These empathy experiments have become more common in corporate training and educational settings, though critics question whether brief exposure can create lasting change in perception. What sets Keanu's approach apart is that it wasn't designed for public consumption or professional advancement. It was a personal journey toward understanding, one that continues to shape his interactions with everyone he encounters. "The experiment never really ended for me," he confided to a close friend. "I can't unsee what I've seen. Now, whenever I pass someone on the street who others are ignoring, I see them with completely different eyes. I remember what it felt like to be in their position, even if my experience was just a fraction of what they endure daily." Each morning as we navigate our worlds, we make hundreds of micro decisions about who deserves our attention, our respect, our compassion. These choices, multiplied across millions of individuals, create the social fabric that either supports or fails our most vulnerable. Keanu's experiment reminds us that the person holding that sign isn't merely seeking financial assistance, they're seeking acknowledgement of their continued existence as a human being. The transaction isn't primarily about money, it's about whether we're willing to see each other across the widening divides of circumstance. A social worker who coordinates with one of the shelters Keanu supports shared this perspective: "When people come here, their greatest wound isn't usually physical hunger, it's the psychological damage of becoming invisible. Being seen, being acknowledged, sometimes matters more than whatever dollar amount changes hands." This insight reflects what researchers in social psychology have long understood, that social pain activates many of the same neural pathways as physical pain. Being ignored, excluded, or dismissed hurts in a very real, neurological sense. By choosing to experience this pain firsthand, Keanu demonstrated a level of empathetic curiosity that challenges us all. It asks the fundamental question: would you be willing to temporarily surrender your comfort to truly understand another's suffering? 3 years after his initial experiment, Keanu was filming on location in downtown Los Angeles when a production assistant approached with an unusual message: "There's someone outside the security perimeter asking for you. Says his name is James." Keanu immediately stopped what he was doing and walked to the edge of the set. There stood James Doherty, no longer homeless, now clean-shaven and dressed in simple but dignified attire. He wasn't alone. With him stood 12 other formerly homeless veterans, each with their own story of transformation. What happened next wasn't captured by cameras. Keanu insisted on privacy, but multiple crew members witnessed the scene. Keanu embraced each man individually, taking time to hear their stories. Then, to everyone's surprise, he asked the director for a 2-hour break in filming. During those 2 hours, Keanu gave these 13 men something more valuable than money or connections. He gave them his complete, undivided attention. He listened to their experiences, their struggles, their triumphs. Not as a celebrity doing a good deed, but as one human being to another. When filming resumed, the entire crew noticed a shift in Keanu's demeanor, a deeper intensity, a renewed purpose. The scene they were shooting involved his character making a moral choice under pressure. According to the director, it was Keanu's most powerful performance of the entire production. Later, when asked what had changed in his approach to the scene, Keanu simply said, "I met some real heroes today. It puts everything else in perspective." The 13 veterans were later invited to the film's premiere not as publicity props, but as Keanu's personal guests. They sat not in the back of the theater but directly behind him in premium seats. When reporters attempted to turn their presence into a human interest story, Keanu politely but firmly declined all interview requests related to his guests. "Their stories belong to them," he explained. "Not to me, and not to the public." As with many accounts about celebrities, some details of this particular experiment have been dramatized for narrative impact. The exact circumstances, duration, and specific interactions presented here combine Keanu Reeves' known patterns of behavior with storytelling elements that illuminate deeper truths about human connection and compassion. What remains undisputed, however, is Keanu Reeves' consistent pattern of extraordinary empathy, his deliberate choice to live modestly despite immense wealth, and his genuine concern for those society often overlooks. Whether this specific street experiment happened exactly as described matters less than the undeniable truth it illuminates. One of Hollywood's most bankable stars consistently chooses compassion over convenience, understanding over ignorance, and quiet action over public performance. In a culture increasingly defined by curated social media presence and performative activism, Keanu represents something increasingly rare: authentic concern expressed through consistent behavior rather than carefully crafted moments. So perhaps the most valuable question isn't whether every detail of this particular story happened exactly as described, but rather, what would our world look like if more of us, regardless of our resources, approached human connection with such genuine curiosity and compassion? If Keanu Reeves, with all his success and demands, can make time to truly see the invisible among us, what excuse remains for the rest of us? The next time you pass someone society has deemed invisible, remember that you stand at an important crossroads. Will you reinforce their invisibility, or will you acknowledge their humanity? In that moment, you have more power than you realize to affirm someone's existence in this world. They stepped over him like trash. But one man saw him, and shared his only sandwich. That changed everything. You never know who you're stepping over. And maybe that's the real test: how you treat someone before you know who they are. Perhaps the most frightening thing isn't poverty or loneliness, but when an entire society walks past you as if you never existed. We cannot change the whole world in a day. But each person, each glance, each time we pause is an opportunity to see others through human eyes. Comment, "I see you," if this story made you stop and reflect. If this story made you think, share it. And if you believe the world needs more of this, subscribe to Motivation for Success.